What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. We're talking a bit about fearful avoidance, the way I've lived with it, and then also some love stuff. If you're watching this, I'm going to assume you're already somewhat familiar with fearful avoidance and other attachment styles. I think fearful avoidance can operate in a few ways. As in, the way it operates now is very different from the way it operated when I was younger. Another thing to mention is attachment styles I don't think just operate romantically. There are all sorts of attachments. So, fearful avoidance has defined most of my friendships too. When I was younger, the people who were close to me were my life. But it reached a point, and I think it was late middle school, none of the people I wanted to be around wanted to be around me. At least very much. This wasn't to say, or this isn't to say, they were bad friends or shitty people. It's that other people and other aspects of the world were a lot more exciting. I was always more of the home base friend. The trouble was maintaining that home base was my life. And when all of the people you care most about are more interested in going out among other people and doing other things and not bringing you along, it starts to fuck with your head a bit. I mean, years of wanting to be more connected with the people I was supposed to be most connected to. Now, time passed, and there was a hard instance, and then a long, slower instance of cutting myself off from people. One switch flip of deciding my entire life and my self-worth, my goals, will not be attached to people who won't do the same for me. And then that longer, slower instance of occasionally meeting people and getting close with them, and then needing to flip switches again until we come to the present state at which I'm not close or connected with anybody. And there are people I care about, but I care about them only as long as or insofar as we rely on one another for practical things. And this isn't to say I can't care about people outside that, or I don't care about people outside that, but the way I feel about these people whom I'm not connected with in any practical way is so low on my list of priorities it almost doesn't matter. And I created this state, but I created it out of necessity. And there are two ways to look at that necessity. One, you can't rely on people, you can't expect them to have your back no matter what you do for them. So people are always a risky investment. And then the other way to look at it, I'm not emotionally resilient enough to maintain connections with other people with more realistic, quotes, expectations. And I think both of those are true. But there's also another component to this, these archetypes or these roles we play in life. I've been thinking a lot about that Hierophant shit, that gateway friend shit. I don't think cosmically it's my place in life to be important to people. I think I exist as a stopover, a living roadside inn combination inn library. You show up, you have your transformative event, or I nurse you back to health. I equip you with whatever information I can that you need, and then you go on your way. Rarely is it sending people on their way, but this is the pattern of, quotes, closer connections in my life. Anyone I get close with doesn't stay close for very long, and it's always something. Usually they will choose to leave or to move on or not to stay, which sound like the same thing, but they're not. End result is the same, so fuck it. but it always feels like someone or something comes banging on the door in the middle of the night and they need to get out of there. And now that I'm a little bit older, when I was younger, I would, as pathetically as possible, beg and plead for them to stay because I didn't want them to leave. And it never worked because why would it in a practical sense? And also, why would it in a cosmic sense? This isn't your place. And as time has gone on, I've stopped doing that. I think it's been close to 6 years since I've done that. And this isn't to say there aren't still people I encounter whom I would plead with to stay or want to, but I don't do that anymore. And I don't do it both because I know it won't help, and also because you hurt more when you do it. Because you're admitting to somebody that they are more important to you than you are to them. You're also confronting the powerlessness, your powerlessness, against reality, against the facts, in as infantile a way you can. It's like you come face to face with Anton Chigurh. You don't want to be the guy who begs. Because, one, it's not going to change anything, and two, as Anton says, you better admit your situation, or it's better you admit your situation, because there's more dignity in it. Which is what Llewellyn's wife did. Which is not beg. Take it like a man. Although ultimately, it doesn't really matter because you're feeling the same thing, whichever route you take. And the longer I've been doing things like this, the fewer times you will meet these people whom you don't want to leave. And I don't know if that's the narrowing of your standards, as in the same class of person always comes through, but you're less likely to want now. Or if it's just these special people don't come through as much. And when I was younger, loneliness felt like drowning. Now, and maybe it's thanks to YouTube, I have someone, well, it's not really a person, I have a void I can talk at, but I don't get lonely as much. And certainly not for basic friendship. I love acquaintances, but I've been without friends for so long, or friends that I would feel super close to like that for so long. I'm beginning not even to see the appeal. In your life, do you want someone you need to prioritize up to your standards who you know won't prioritize you in the same way? And even if they would, do you want... I mean, it feels pathetic to want that from another person. There's nothing a friend can do, an acquaintance can't do better for less investment. And I think that's one of the reasons all my acquaintances are not even close to the sorts of people I would imagine as having as friends. Because if there's that possibility, it becomes desire. And if you're desiring, then you are already fucked because you are not getting what you want. I think it all well, I don't think it does all come back to a deep fear of abandonment and pain in loneliness. You reach a point you realize there is no way to fix this or to make it better, and your options are either continue to cry like a baby and do nothing and hope things will change, and they won't, and live the rest of your life like this, or figure out how to deal with it. I don't think it'll ever not hurt. But if you're leaving whether or not you feel okay or can feel okay, in the hands of another person, then you are so unbelievably fucked. There aren't words for it. Now, the other side of this is you'll also never make yourself feel okay. That's the painful revelation we've had recently. But at least this way, you'll have control over it. In other words, you'll never not hurt, but you can at least manage your own defenses against the void, against the horror, and know. And knowing is a big deal because as life goes on, it's insane that anyone thinks they know anything. And it's weird, that's weird, because people know all kinds of shit, but nobody knows anything that matters. And people can, on a very small scale, very unique scale, figure out some things, but even then, it's nothing that is super important, or if maybe it is super important, but they can't replicate it. There's no grand needle to thread. There are countless little needles, and when you thread them, it feels like you've managed to thread them by chance alone. In other words, not only can you not mass produce this solution for everybody, but also you probably can't replicate it yourself. The amount of shit we don't know is crushing. Now, in this attachment thing, in this healing and being healed thing, love looks to me like the only thing that can come anywhere close to resolving it. Of course, again, will you ever actually resolve it? I don't know, because I've never gotten to that point. But patterns say no. Things will get better, but nothing basic or foundational will be resolved. Now, this is one of those certain death versus actual death things we talked about a few videos ago. So there is hope, and I am holding my breath. Doublethink is the weirdest thing. On one hand, I am hoping more than a person can hope or should hope. I am totally convinced this form of love is the answer. On the other hand, I am totally convinced it's not, and not only is it not, but also finding out for sure it's not will be devastating. And it's exponentially devastating because you know, if you find out it's not, what's the next thing you're going to do? Find another thing to hope for. Another notch in the suffering cycle. And that, if nothing else, is kind of funny. Now, I can't stop thinking about that woman. The one who kicked off the Sociopath arc. You thought the last round of Doublethink was bad. We're in a good spot. We've reached a point I need to think to recall her name. Or her handle, actually. We had the sense not to exchange real-life names, but I like Skimmerlit better anyway. That entire situation was brutal because she was one I wanted to plead with or for. I didn't, but I wanted to, and that got me thinking about fearful avoidance in addition to a lot of different shit. I realized unconsciously, the more I like somebody, the more mental or emotional distance I'll make with them as I am trying to get closer to them. And I think that's a method of covering my escape, but it's unconscious enough. I had to catch myself at one point when I did it. And thinking back, I recognize there are instances that are singular instances I didn't catch, and also, probably in my entire vibe, it almost feels like an anglerfish, except the lure is your consciousness, and your unconsciousness is the entire big, ugly, fuck off fish. And that analogy doesn't work perfectly, but to continue using it, because I think you get the idea, it's not you are using a lure to bring somebody in so you can eat them. You are trying to bring them in, and then they end up getting eaten. Except eaten here would be an explosive version of a smoke grenade getaway. Except it doesn't come out of nowhere because as you're talking, getting closer to this person, and dreaming of them getting closer to you, you are pulling out your grappling hook, got your grenade belt on, putting on your coat. But I've been thinking about all this, and I've been drawing cards, and I've come to the conclusion that she didn't love me. And, no shit. And what an egotistical thing to think, and a conclusion to draw, but I still feel confident my nose was right. Something happened. One of the things I'm learning in this sociopath investigation is this value alignment thing. Most of them talk like people they get attached to are, in their own egotistical way, extensions of themselves. They aren't actually people, but they are reflections of this master manipulator. But there are also instances of the inverse of this, a wag the dog situation, in which a sociopath isn't the dominator, but the submitter, not viewing other people as extensions of themselves, but rather viewing themselves as extensions of other people, which it is the same thing, it's just a matter of perspective. In other words, it seems like across the board in sociopaths, there is a synthesis that can happen. Something other than love, but arguably deeper, a union, soul union. So if in our sociopath investigation one of the primary goals was to figure out whether or not a sociopath can love, yes, it's just not the way you think about it. It's like a Kemmler and Krell situation. Effectively, so connected, they're basically one, but more a battle of who's in charge. It's like the Hulk, actually. Bruce Banner or the Hulk. Same person, different people, lots of back and forth about who's in charge. Lots of ideas, conflicting ideas about who's in charge. And whether or not you can ever find a true equality in that is its own debate, but that union is a thing, and it does go back and forth. And I think so many of them frame love and attachment in this, now that you look at it, dominance displaying way, like cobras expanding their hoods, because these unions are dangerously close to their not having control over themselves, over their destinies. And worse, if they get to that point, it's not even really a question, because they have chosen to allow their dominance over themselves to be questioned. Maybe they'll retain the appearance of dominance in the union, but if they are in this union, then it's no longer a certainty. Their dominance is no longer a certainty, because they are no longer just one person. It's subsume or be subsumed with them. And I think the key is, it's not even whether or not they have the dominance or whether or not they can retain the dominance. It's that it is no longer certain when they're in a union with somebody. The possibility is ego dissolving almost, and not in a fun way. Jacob's ladder. And I think the other frightening aspect of this is it's another thing that they don't have a choice in. Because sociopath attachment works, or seems to work, in a weird way too. They have all sorts of choices in the ways they can deal with people or work with people or work people. But when it comes to attachment, their only choice is whether or not to allow themselves to be in situations in which they can get attached. That's why a lot of them will create distance. They begin to get attached, and on some level, they realize what's happening and they realize what it means, and that's terrifying or it's inconvenient. And I've been calling myself emotionally weak. Maybe we're all emotionally weak here. They can't decide, just decide, not to get attached to somebody. Because the attachment, when it begins to form, is involuntary. Their only choice is to extricate themselves from that situation so the attachment stops forming. They can't just say, no, I'm not going to get attached here. And I hesitate to call it fear, but one of the participants of the investigation recommended me a channel that's been very useful. Sam Vaknin, Vaknin. Dude's kind of German, but some of his information is useful. Sociopaths fear. There is a fear analog in sociopaths, but it's very different, even down to the biological response level, from baseliner fear. Anyway, I hesitate to call this feeling fear. Maybe like increasing PSI, increasing air pressure. It seems like an intensity in them starts building up. A pressure in them starts building up when they realize what's happening and what it means. And a lot of the time they won't know what to do with that or what to do about it. So they do things that will allow that attachment to die naturally. And this video is supposed to be just about fearful avoidance. I wasn't expecting us to get into one of the more serious sociopath videos. We're gonna have to change the title. Probably add a skip to this point button. Anyway, what I do with fearful avoidance seems to be very similar to what sociopaths do with their attachments. I can't control when I really like somebody, when I love someone. I can't control how I feel. So, if I'm not going to have control over this situation, if there's no way for me to determine the outcome, then I need to get out of here so this thing can die. The point of concern or the point of control is just different. For me, I can't control what you do, and I won't debase myself in trying or disrespect you and try to fuck with your borders. So I gotta get out of here. Whereas a sociopath can't control themselves. So they gotta get out of there. And it's a series of wag the dog situations. Just about identical. All that's shifted is the perspective and what you're worried about. And if I had to guess, this is probably what happened with that woman. It's not love. She was right. The cards were right. Not love, but it's something. And by the way, this can happen, it's with sociopaths anyway, it seems like this can happen not just with potential romantic partners, but also with all sorts of people. Thinking back, an ENTJ I was friends with, he might even, I don't think he ever popped up in a video, but I probably talked about him a long time ago. He had one of these attachments with a mentor who meant a lot to him. And I say that's probably a sociopathic attachment because one of the participants in the investigation has one of these attachments with somebody who is not a romantic partner. It's not romantic love. It's not even friendship love or familial love. It's not any sort of love. But it is something. Something analogous. So my guess, and I'm doing this to give myself more closure? How much closure do you need before you can move on? You're never really gonna move on when you love someone like this. I mean, with the blanket of time, I still love most of my exes. Even the one who wanted to really fuck my life up and kill me and kidnap me and sexually assault me and all these things. I think this woman was beginning to feel that pull. And as I said, it's not like she pulled the plug and walked away and said she never wanted to talk to me again like I did. This was supposed to be a somewhat scheduled thing, but the way it happened, what I think played out was she was beginning to feel this pull, and there might have been a lurch in it, a lurch forward maybe. So she created distance and was intending to give herself time to figure out what this is and what she wants to do about it. But I think for me, I don't know if it was the 1 week mark or the 2 week mark. I feel like it was the 2 week mark, which means it was probably just the 1 week mark, but I really think it was 2 weeks. She'd given me nothing but every reason to walk away, as in no assurances. What's a word? I don't think dissurances is a word, but that's what they were. So I walked away. I pulled the plug hard because I couldn't handle the emotional anxiety of waiting to get shot in the head. And this is another instance I think the cards were right. This isn't a situation in which if I had just stuck it out, she would have come around and we would have been in love and life would have changed for the better and all these things. No, it felt like a singularity of uncertainty. A level of ambivalence that could tear space-time. I'll continue to think about her, but this feels like defusing a series of closure bombs, and we just managed to disarm another one. If she changes her mind, then she'll find a way to come back around, and I trust my nose to know whether or not it's a good idea, even if I can't put words on it. The same way my nose detected whatever was going on there. I knew something was going on. Didn't have words for it because I didn't know enough. Now we know a little bit more. Trust my nose again. But if not, we are in a much better position than we were. It is, in fact, possible to, quotes, love sociopaths and to be, quotes, loved by sociopaths. It's not the same as normal love. But good. I like this better. And we can be more accommodating because now we understand why they're so weird and divided about it. It's an involuntary forfeiture of certain control. And I think back to that video with that dickhead tough guy acting like sociopaths are complete monsters and they can't love, or if they love, then it's only the way a person would love an object. There's an element of that, but it's not even close to the whole story, and the theme we're finding in sociopaths is chronic humanity. They are chronically human. You listen to everything we've just discussed about their form of love or attachment, the symptoms sound a lot like the symptoms of baseliner love. It's just their priorities and methods of interfacing with it are very different. And maybe I've gotten this completely and totally wrong, and again, maybe in a year we'll be posing the sociopath question, but if things go that direction, it'll at least be funny. We aren't minorly, mundanely wrong. We are majorly, fantastically wrong. And fingers crossed, we are at a stage in life we can enjoy it. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.